Hoo-wee and hello everyone, welcome back to another Elden Ring video, and today we're going to discuss the philosophy of Gankers in Elden Ring, but for the most part this applies to all Souls games. I've been invading in this game for 4 years now, and in my time I've seldom been able to talk to Gankers and get their input on why they do what they do, but I've still been able to speak to 3 or 4 teams in Elden Ring. I'm sure a lot of invaders have asked themselves why people gank, and I've put together a few reasons why they do it. Now obviously as invaders we need Gankers because it makes invading that much more fun. And I'm not trying to dunk on gankers here, but what I say will be negative due to the objective nature of ganking in these games is pretty toxic. By the way, a YouTuber named I Am Amish did a video already on this topic back in the DS3 era, and his video covers some stuff I didn't go over as much, so the link for that video will be the first thing in the description. Now here are the reasons for ganking that I've come up with. Ganking for fun. Players who aren't very good at PvP and don't care about improving at the game, gank for fun. Players like this are usually just looking to pass the time with friends by luring reds. Another reason might be because they're just regular players who might not be up to invading because of the work it takes. I've ganked sometimes just from boredom or laziness or simply wanting to play with my invader friends. These people almost always are playing the game casually. They're not playing to salt bait or gank with pure malice toward reds, which leads us to the next reason, ganking with malice. People like these somehow got it in their heads that the invasion system itself is the enemy and must be destroyed. They are also very often self-righteous, thinking they're doing some type of service by killing and pointing down the evil, filthy REDman. These kind of players are beyond not wanting to improve, almost embracing how awful they are at the game by potentially using exploits, overleveled summons, and disconnecting. Experiencing ganks like these can really go either way depending on what exploits are available at the time or what cheesy setups there are. Ganks like these can very often end up with you just dying. If they're thirsty enough and playing in a closed off location, which they often do, you arguably had no chance of winning in the first place. They seek the literal greatest advantage they can possibly have because I assume they've already realized deep down that they're really awful at the game. However, this realization manifests as outward hatred toward invaders instead of any vindicating introspection. Blaming others for their shortcomings and bottling up the hate for the low-level invader that was twinking at level 40 and quote-unquote griefed them. Ganks like these are the most fun to try to re-invade and win until they block you, which also happens a lot with these weak crybaby types. They'll also infinitely resummon a gauntlet of overleveled cancer for you. If you happen to make it through, they'll most likely just disconnect on you. That's a worst case scenario though. Sometimes ganks like this can be solely from the type of build the players are using, like in the case of this invasion. The kind of players that are too scared to use a sword in a sword game just spam sorceries. This kind of gank is nasty even though it's just 2. Because of how nasty their builds are, even though it appears like they're running the game, the gank is gross because they are gross. This leads us to our next reason. Coincidental ganks / gonkers. The ganks that take place when you invade players just going through the game normally. These ganks can make up quite a lot of your interactions as an invader depending on what level you're on. They're not too common at meta, but can be up to like 75% of what you find on mid-level builds like 70 or 80. Ganks like these can end up being pretty damn nasty as a result of overleveled babysitters hand-holding hosts through their playthroughs, and when you happen to come along, their builds are made for PvE with quote-unquote optimized damage, and they can do plenty of damage to you, resulting in a gank that can be pretty bad, but sometimes relatively chill. Here's an example of a chill one. Stream sniping, targeting, and exposing. Stream sniping will always be a thing with popular streamers, and the goal is to kill a popular, usually skilled invader by any cheesy means necessary. This type of gank is very similar to ganking with malice because these ganks will literally use the most cancerous shit available in the game at the time, even hacking and exploits. Exposing isn't really a thing that happens specifically in Elden Ring, but it was very much a thing in Dark Souls 3. The best example is what the streamer G9 had to go through with the max level exposing scrubs, which would use any cancer they could get their grubby little carpal tunnel hands on to get a kill on any streamer. Which ultimately the ends would justify the means for these people. Arguably these exposers were the biggest fans of the invader streamers they attempted to expose. Trolling. These kinds of players are like a mixture between playing for fun, but they're mostly playing with malice. They will deploy a variety of silly plays that will hopefully leave the filthy invader seething with rage. Players like this will fog wall cheese, run away from you for 10 minutes, in the case of this invasion here. They'll just run around and waste as much of your time as possible. Troll hosts will also AFK farm. Now it's assumed among invaders that these troglodytes actually think they're getting runes from sitting in a place like the bridge in Liurnia or that one tower spot, but I don't think we're giving them quite enough credit. A lot of these clowns I've messaged as they AFK farm. Not only do they immediately respond, they also immediately make fun of you, which is hilarious given the precarious activity they're partaking in. However, they are epic trolls and will epically own you by attempting to waste your time. A lot of times the hosts are too stupid to know that I can hit them through walls in the case of the tower spot and the bridge spot. Invasions like these are always hilarious, so I'd really have no problem with whatever hosts decide to do, as long as they're not stat cheating like this clown. So I'm hoping I've covered the majority of things here. Feel free to write down a comment if you feel I missed a reason for why gankers gank. In conclusion, as invaders we need gankers. When I started fighting ganks in DS3 I never understood why people would ever gank. It just didn't make sense to me at all, and like a child I hated something I didn't understand. I hated gankers. I think most invaders that end up getting more and more experience as they invade more and more, I think they eventually see them as not necessarily the enemy, but like it's kind of a symbiotic relationship that we have with these dudes. And you know, we're all playing the same game, so ultimately it's not something that there shouldn't be a rivalry there. Unless it's blues, that's a whole other thing, especially in Elden Ring. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Please comment, because any discourse about gankers I'd love to participate in. Have a good one, guys.